It's that time of the year once again. Steam has dropped a ton of demos into our collective goodie bags, and the Second Wind crew is here to rifle around in there and tell you where the good stuff is. Here's our 12 favorite demos from Steam Next Fest.
Knights in Tight Spaces is the sequel to Fights in Tight Spaces, a tactical deck-building roguelite I really enjoyed, and it expands on that game's focus on pushing enemies and using the environment to your advantage. Whereas the previous game had you playing as a single person, this demo sees you building a team of up to 3 characters with different classes and abilities, who split the same turn using a shared deck. This leads to some interesting choices. Should I pick basic attack cards so everyone can use them, or focus on more specialized cards, like bows and magic? Do I dodge with my mage, or move my fighter in for the kill? The demo only included a couple of classes and doesn't have much encounter variety, but I already had a great time zapping, pushing, and stabbing skeletons, and I will definitely pick this one up when it's done.
Urban Myth Dissolution Center is a delightfully devilish detective mystery from developer Hakaba Bunko. You play as a rookie member of a psychic team built to identify various urban myths that pop up across a city. Think stuff like cursed objects, ghostly apartment hauntings, and dimensional anomalies. By chatting with witnesses, scouring social media, and combing through the environment, you'll gather up a litany of clues that you can piece together and shine a light on the unexplainable, one case at a time. The demo exudes big DS-era visual novel energy, reminding me of gems like Hotel Dusk and Ghost Trick in the best possible way. The expressive sprite work and atmospheric music do an excellent job of immediately creating and maintaining the kind of vibe I love getting lost in. All of this is strengthened by some really charming characters and writing that oscillates nicely between spooky and silly. Urban Myth Dissolution Center is currently slated for a February 2025 release, making it one of my personal early must-plays of next year.
I've been on the lookout for my next Souls-like hit, and I think I may have found it with AI Limit. It reminds me a lot of the original Dark Souls, as the game goes back to that more methodical, slow-paced combat that the series was originally known for. The game is a little bland on the art side, but the general atmosphere and combat hit that dark and somber tone that I enjoy in a lot of Souls-likes. Combat offers a lot of variety, including both a parry system and a shield that you can choose between depending on your preferred playstyle. There's definitely work to be done as controls can feel a little bit delayed, the parry's a little too finicky to time, and the dodge could be a bit more responsive, but overall, I enjoyed my time with the demo, especially the first boss fight, which is very important in setting the expectation for a new Souls-like, and I'm looking forward to exploring more of this weird world. AI Limit is currently listed for 2024 on Steam, but I suspect we won't be seeing this one until 2025.
As We Descend is a strategy deck-building roguelike, with a bit of city upgrading to add another minor genre in there. And believe me when I say that phrase is not enough to get me invested in a game. Neither is one of the first in-game messages saying, "There is no tutorial." Because if someone can't bother to teach me how to play their game, it's probably not worth my time. But after some trial and error, and my first run ending in defeat, the clear signposting and limited interactions allowed me to experiment and figure out how to play. Going beyond the city allows you to get supplies, gatekept behind each possible combat encounter. Different folk in the city need different things, and what you need changes based on how your last fight went, so you have to decide whether to gain favor, money, and new cards or reinforce the city's defenses for the incoming boss battle based on what supplies you bring back. It's a satisfying balance of fairly simple tactical fighting, deck building, city planning, and resource management blended to create a layered experience that grew in complexity but never became cryptic or unmanageable. Add a gorgeous art style to cover the rather thin amount of story I got, and it's enough to make me want more.
Spirit of the Samurai is a side-on action game that has an immediately eye-catching aesthetic. Its story of a spiritually attuned warrior fighting off dark forces is a natural fit for the unsettling stop-motion-like visuals. Its gameplay also sets it apart, having you switch between the samurai, a spirit ninja called a kodama, and an adorable kitten, though only the samurai was playable in the demo. The 2D swordplay makes interesting use of the right control stick, allowing you to freely swing your sword or aim arrows on either side of you. A well-timed block will parry attacks, and holding it allows you to maintain your direction when moving, while dashing and rolling help you close distance and get behind enemies. The fights are tense and beautifully animated, but the 1-hour demo was made up of almost 50% cutscenes, I'm looking forward to seeing how this comes along down the road, regardless of the small sample available.
We Harvest Shadows is a first-person horror farming simulator developed and published by David Whaley. You play as Garrett, whose tragic past has prompted him to exile himself to an abandoned farmstead, hoping to never speak to another human being again. Each day comes with a new list of tasks to complete. Things like cleaning the property, growing tomatoes, building a chicken coop, and other projects to earn money and improve the estate. Controls are extremely simple, and there's no inventory to keep track of, just a small selection of basic tools and whatever items you can carry in your hands. Garrett's lifestyle would be idyllic, in the labor-intensive way farming tends to be, if it weren't for the nights fraught with strange phenomena and frightening encounters that begin to take a toll on his already fragile psyche. We Harvest Shadows blends some of my favorite genres into an experience that the developer describes as relaxing yet terrifying and beautiful yet ugly. If the full game succeeds in delivering a compelling narrative, it might just be the creepy, story-driven farming spree I've always wanted to play.
The roguelike deck building genre is currently one of my favorites, and this October Steam Next Fest is utterly chock full of them. However, the one that really stood out to me the most has been Starvaders. Starvaders is what you get if you cross Space Invaders with a tactical turn-based deck builder, and thanks to its lovely art, sound effects, and pacing, it's an instant hit for me. There's a lot going on in this one, having to maneuver your mech to get the right shot, or pairing the right cards together to pull off combos, and as with any roguelike game, provides that one more run feeling that you're looking for. Much like Ballionaire earlier this year, Starvaders feels like something brand new in a genre that's completely oversaturated at the moment. And speaking of Ballionaire, its developer, Local Thunk, already gave Starvaders his seal of approval. Starvaders is due out in Q2 2025 on PC, and I'll be downloading it on my Steam Deck the second it's available.
Ballionaire is a pachinko-based roguelite packed with brain-pleasing sounds, colors, and numbers going up. Rather than aiming your ball, you place bouncers between the pegs, and when your ball hits them, they'll trigger effects that often combo with other bouncers. In one sense, this isn't that deep, because you just keep placing objects on the board and hoping they get hit and make your brain feel good in a very lowest common denominator way. But I played the demo for a couple of hours because there's always the allure of pulling off a strategy you've been building all game, suddenly making tons of points, and feeling like a genius. I think the strategies in the demo are a bit one note. I found one or two great combos, whereas others were way too hard to set up. But Ballionaire is set to be addictive roguelite fun when it releases sometime soon.
In just a few short minutes, the Hyperbeat demo filled the pulsating and oddly shaped res/vid ribbon hole that's existed in my heart for the past 20 years. Like those two cult classic inspirations, Hyperbeat is a rhythm game set in an entrancing world filled with minimalist art and effects. Each course pairs you with a song from its original soundtrack as you attempt to achieve that perfect zen-like flow state. Following the music as you position your character in front of oncoming notes, attacking some and just going along with the flow of others. Between tracks, you're transported to this surreal world called the Wellspring, where you commune with fellow knights and prepare yourself for the next run. It's a cozy reprieve from an otherwise relentless storm. It goes without saying that Hyperbeat isn't for everyone. In fact, I'd say it isn't for most people. But if you're on my same weird wavelength and want to lose yourself in a visual and audio experience, I highly recommend that you check out the demo yourself.
Tenebris Somnia is a survival horror game developed by Andres Borki and Cybot Studios, produced by Erdorf Games, and published by New Blood Interactive. The developers describe it as in the same vein as survival horror classics like Silent Hill or Resident Evil, but transferred to a retro 2D environment more typical of the NES or Famicom. You play as Julia, a woman plagued by recurring nightmares in which her ex-boyfriend is killed by monsters. When her attempts to contact him go unanswered, she pays a visit to the apartment they once shared and finds herself contending with occult forces and malevolent creatures via inventory-based puzzles and simple combat to save her ex's life as well as her own. What sets Tenebris Somnia apart from other retro horror titles is its inclusion of live-action cutscenes to accompany key plot points. While these cinematics are campy enough to pair naturally with the game's outlandish story, they're also created by professional actors and an award-winning film crew, which successfully elevates Julia from a collection of pixels to a real-life character that players can empathize with more fully. I've had Tenebris Somnia on my wishlist since I played the first version of its demo about a year ago, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the full version builds upon the content presented in the current iteration.
Dimensionals is a new turn-based roguelike RPG with an incredible looking comic book art style that caught my attention as soon as I scrolled over it. The game sort of plays like a mix of Slay the Spire and Darkest Dungeon as you collect heroes, cards, and relics as you progress through each level. The big twist here is that it's not a deck builder game, as you can only assign 3 powers to each of your 3 heroes at the start, but can add more later as you upgrade your heroes and abilities. There's a lot of playing around with these characters as you unlock them and new abilities to find that perfect setup for your run. The power system is also handled differently as each round gives you another energy slot, almost like how it works on Marvel Snap. I quickly lost time playing this one thanks to the briskness of its gameplay, its art design, and being excited about that next ability I would unlock as I progressed. The writing wasn't half bad either, as I got to insult the first boss I faced. In return, I got a cursed relic in my inventory, which gave me a good laugh. Dimensionals is due out on November 18th, 2024 in Steam Early Access.
Spirit Strike, or Spirit X Strike, is pretty rough around the edges. It's got a bland title, boring environments, and ugly character models. But oh, does it absolutely nail its over-the-top spectacle fighter gameplay. Combat feels ripped right out of early Dragon Ball Z episodes, with you teleporting across the battlefield to clock enemies with enough hit stun to read a book before they go flying. It looks fantastic, but notably, it keeps the dynamics of fighting simple by giving you punches and kicks on separate buttons with new combos built around how you mix and match them in a string. Blocks, parries, and dodges are over-exaggerated, as are the satisfying finishing moves that trigger once you rack up enough stun on enemies. It never feels like the game is playing itself, which is often one of my biggest gripes about games that look this flashy, and I'll be watching intently as Spirit Strike comes along in its development. Hey y'all, thanks a lot for checking out this video. We heard the feedback that you're really into these kinds of recommendation dumps, and not only are we likely to keep them coming, I promise to find better phrasing to describe them. So if you're liking what we do here, think about joining up on our Patreon. There are extra perks, uncut extras, and some oddball one-off videos to make it worth your while. Thanks for the support, and see you next fest.